Dear Gwitch everyone, Kajima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 150 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, Inline G. You heard me right. 150 episodes of Inline G. It is mad. What am I doing here? What are you still doing here? Go do something with your lives. Why are you listening to me? I will be doing a celebratory episode. Of course I will, but that will be next week because here, you only turn 151 once, don't you? Ladies, you know what I'm saying? No, but because this episode this week, I have to say, lads, it's going to be sitting in my drafts for like 4 weeks at this point, and I can't deal with that. It needs to be out there. I loved this episode. I have got a stellar guest for you, and it just needs to get out there. So this week's guest is Heather O'Donnell. Heather is a psychologist, an artistic systemic therapist, a performance coach, and a former professional classical musician. She's from the USA, but now lives here in Germany. In fact, in Dusseldorf, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Cologne, where I am currently based. She specializes in working with classical musicians and all the issues associated with them uniquely. I love this episode. I've wanted to have a psychologist on for a long time to ask them all those things about classical music. Things like how important is identity in classical music, or the role of trauma, or burnout, or neurodiversity, or abuse, etc., etc. But also some happy things. You know, we got to talk about the psychological benefits of practice as a musician, the flow state, and how good music really is for your brain. It's stellar. I love this episode. So listen, if you are a regular listener, skip ahead. The wee things in the description of the chapters, you can move ahead. If you're new around here, please stick with me. Give me your ears for just one more minute before you can go listen to Heather talk so wonderfully. The Inline G podcast is free, and it will always be free. That is a guarantee. However, if you wish to donate to the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. Guys, listen, this is a small independent podcast, the definition of it. I do everything on this podcast on my own. There is an episode of this podcast every single Friday, come rain nor shine. You will get an episode a week of this. I do the audio production, video production, graphic design. The solo episodes, which do not have guests, have deep dives, historical takes, all kinds of mad stuff going on. There's a lot of script writing involved in that. I do it all on my own. I adore it. This is the greatest creative output of my life. I love making this podcast, but it is a lot of work. I do not want sponsors on the podcast because sponsors will try to get some kind of degree of creative control over what I can say and what I can do. They can go fuck themselves. I don't want that here. I want the podcast that you want and that I want. So it is listener funded. It is the biggest flute podcast in the world and is 100% listener funded. You can be a part of that. It costs €5 a month. You sign up on Patreon. If you just want to give me a one-off fee, go and sign up and then cancel the subscription straight away. Basically, you're going to get 4 episodes a month. If you listen to this episode, or you listen to all 4, and you think, fuck, that was great, I got 4 hours of entertainment there, I'd love to buy Gareth a pint if I saw him in real life, do it digitally. You're keeping the podcast alive with that. Without the patrons, this podcast would not exist anymore. I get to earn a small income as an independent artist. It means the world to me. And also, what are you paying for Netflix or Amazon Prime and all? And there's fuck all on it these days. You're getting your Inline G every week for €5 a month. So if you can afford to do it, please do. Sign up to do it. It makes the world of difference around here, really. But if you can't afford to do it, that's grand. Times are hard here. You will not miss out on any content. There's no bonus contents for people subscribed. It is a system based on soundness and kindness. If you can afford to, you're paying so that someone who can't afford can continue to listen for free. Thank you very much. So here is this week's Inline G Flute podcast with Heather O'Donnell. I think a good point to start is, where did you stop becoming a pianist and when did you realize that you wanted to move into what you're doing now?
Yes, it was clear. It was a break. So I was a pianist until I was the age of 37. So not only training, but living as a pianist for 15 years and like living that life of the freelance musician that at that point in Berlin. And then there were just a accumulation of difficulties. So we came to Berlin under difficult circumstances.
Okay.
It was a difficult start, and those difficulties compounded, and it just became a massive problem of issues, like including hand problems, physical manifestations of a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I had one concert in 2010, and I was just so miserably complaining about how awful everything was that I couldn't stand hearing myself anymore complaining. So I said, I've got to do something. This is ridiculous.
What were you complaining about, if you don't ask me?
I was complaining about everything. I was complaining about the pains in my arms and fingers. I was going to doctors, like a whole range of doctors from very reputable to kind of witch doctors.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do everything. I was spending so much money to try to fix these issues. I had this, like, my body was speaking very clearly, and a lot of doctors were using the word psychosomatic because there wasn't a clear biological component of it. I was obviously injured because of stupid practicing habits.
Stupid in the sense over practicing,
Evangelical about well, it's a little bit more complex about over practicing. As a pianist, especially, there's no clear career path. So when I was training in undergrad, there was no clear way. How do I get from undergrad to a professional musician?
Yeah.
And the thing I caught onto, it wasn't explicitly said, but practice like a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
And pick the hardest pieces that you can and show off through them.
Yeah.
So I picked these macho.
I mean, here's me laugh at this as if I didn't do the exact same fucking thing as a music college, you know.
Right. Yeah. It's what you do. I mean, people have a sense of how am I going to do this? And there's nothing.
Yeah.
What would a pianist know about? I mean, obviously there's the competition route, but that was never mine. I knew, like, from the age of 12 that I wasn't. I got my rejection from Curtis at age 12, which is ridiculous to audition for Curtis at
12 is.
I got to the finals, which was cool.
At 12.
But that was the first time of, like, I'm not on a path in the way I thought I was, and it really coincided with a big drop in confidence.
Yeah.
And then I had a bunch of other stuff going on in my teenage years, some real challenges that I was experiencing with depression, and also my hand problem started at that age. So got to conservatory, decided I'm going to distinguish myself in a different way through, like, the competition path is not going to be mine. That's just, I'm not going to do very well. And so contemporary music and beefy macho pieces. And you know, I love them. I love these pieces, but they're beefy and macho.
Yeah.
And that was my ticket in my mind to a sustainable career. Obviously, physically, it's the opposite. It's
demanding, yeah.
And so even in undergrad conservatory, I was having times where I couldn't play at all. I was getting this, like, you know, I joke about it. I was a walking and talking compendium of every musician's ailment you can.
I know. And we can sit and laugh about it now, but, like, that is such a common story.
Yeah.
It is. I feel like it's maybe less common these days. I feel like your musicians are getting a little bit more switched on to what there is. There's been a bit more advancement as well, the treatment that people get for these things. But certainly in my day, like, everyone had something. There's some kind of physical problem. And again, this was any other career and everyone was at an elite level institution, all suffering physically. You go, maybe we have to have a look at this.
Yeah.
But you didn't. It was just part of the culture. It really was play through the pain. It was almost a little bit like a badge of honor too.
It was. I remember, you know, I had a great teacher in my undergrad. He was very, very committed and fiery and exciting. But one time I went to him, I was bragging to him, like, I practice, I'm not going to say it because it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous number of hours per day. And he said, why not one more?
Yeah.
And he thought he was doing something good. He thought he was like, okay, she's on fire. I'm going to push her a little
I
bit.
can totally understand that, yeah.
And I took it seriously. I said, okay. And I guess I'm a maybe like a covert autistic person. But I went back. Okay. I went back to my practice room and I did it. And my hands were hurting. And but I was getting so much recognition. People were, like, walking by my practice. Oh, she's still there. And one of the Korean teachers at NEC was like, telling her students, you should be more like her.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, there's no bigger compliment to receive as a young musician than that. But you think there's no bigger compliment.
Yes.
There is many bigger compliments. And that's, do you know what, that ties into one thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently and I wanted to ask you about is that question of identity. Of, like, when you stop playing music, what am I if I'm not a musician? It's so deeply tied to us.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
There's no idea.
Is it?
There's no idea. That was something that was so, I remember, like, a flashbulb memory after this concert in 2010, sitting with, like, books about what the hell will I study if I'm not being a pianist? I have to go back to school. And I did it in a very unreflected way. I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to bachelor degree level.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, it would be really fun to study philosophy, because I like
Okay.
philosophy and literature. And then I thought, I've struggled so long in my life with a very unsustainable career. No, I'm not going to do that. And then I thought maybe something and there was so little idea. It was so unclear. So it was just like, maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky in hindsight that I kind of latched onto something which for me now is
Okay.
very meaningful and has a feeling of like the right path for me.
So you didn't know when you stopped that you wanted to go directly into
I
psychology?
had no idea. I had no idea what studying psychology meant.
Okay.
And that was brutal because psychology undergrad means a lot of math. It's
Yeah.
very surprising for people to know that. You know that. because
Yeah,
you're,
unfortunately,
like,
yeah, through my girlfriend, I've heard a lot about this. Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of statistics. And
In this country, especially in Germany, it's
it was so intense because, and there's historical reasons for this. Psychology wants to have the respect of a Naturwissenschaft, like of a hard science. And so they really imposed in the Freie Uni in Berlin that we do our own like by hand statistics, which is just math. I did not do well in math when I was 18 years old. When I was 18, I like at the last math class of my high school, I had this like ritual where I'd put all the math papers in a bin and I burned them. And I thought, I will never need this in my life again. And then I went
in
and
up past Germany.
and here I am. And so much of it was like experimental design, statistics. It was awful. I was like, when are we going to learn about people? When are we going to learn something?
I have watched my girlfriend go through her statistics exam on her master's course like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but it took a few attempts to get there in the end.
Absolutely.
As a non-German speaker, especially because she did her bachelor in
hats
Georgia.
off to her.
And you come to here and she was like, we never did anywhere near that. And you're doing it in German, which I cannot even get my head around.
There is permanent scar tissue in my brain from that experience.
Seriously? Okay.
I am certain of it. I am
she'd be delighted to hear that,
I am
yeah.
certain that many brain cells died in the process of getting
I have never seen someone so and like all our mates as well, all our Georgian mates, like all our German mates were fine about it. They're like, yeah, I don't know this. I'm like, yeah, because you guys are born with numbers. You've had numbers implanted in your brain for kids. But for us other people, we did that at 18. We went, right, that's it, never thinking of a number again.
Yeah,
all the things our maths teachers told us of like, you'll never have a calculator in your pocket. Well, we do now.
Yeah.
So you thought we never had to think about numbers. We've got supercomputers in our pockets.
It was really, truly horrifying. And it's almost an extension of this kind of pianist or musician mythology, like push through, which what got me into trouble in the first place.
Was it useful when you reapplied that energy to somewhere else, though?
I didn't take the time at that point to think about things. I just did things, which has its own sense, and I actually respect it quite a bit in hindsight, but it was painful. So I didn't take the time to reflect. I didn't take the time to ask myself what I really wanted to do. I jumped.
Okay.
And there was like, my ship was sinking in one area, and I thought, the fact that I got into the Freie Uni is also really surprising. I did not have the grades that somebody would need to get into the Freie Uni psychology. It's a numerous clauses. Everybody who's from Germany knows what that means.
Yeah.
And my colleagues were 19-year-olds, half my age, with A+, A++s. And I was not a great student in high school. So I had to I had to contact my high school and get the grade reports. I think somebody thought it was funny that that I'm coming like as a pianist who wants to study psychologist, so that somebody let me in. And I was so unprepared. And the thing that worked was that there were other 30-something women, mostly from caring professions like doulas or Hebamas, like midwives.
Yes.
And a really wonderful director, film director, and people coming from all actresses and stuff. And they were changing careers in their mid-30s, and we found each other and bounded together.
All going towards psychology?
Yeah. And we kind of would sit in a row together, and we hired a 19-year-old statistics tutor. She had this like fiery red hair. She was so good. She understood everything, and she would repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And we would each pay €5 like so that it could accumulate. And us for like 30-something ladies would just sit there, and she would have to repeat it like 15, 16. And then we might get like a D. Like a C or a D. And so that was how we got through.
And do you think I've got a few friends that have done that have went from music to psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason why people are doing that? Is there some kind of link between it? I've always wondered. I mean, even me personally, that was always my backup option. Was if I didn't get into music college, I'd already applied for psychology at universities. it seems like quite a common career path to switch to.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
I imagine when you've gone through being a musician and having a musician's career, jumping to psychology feels like you can then make a difference in the world of music. A lot of people I know who do that have the
Yeah.
intention of coming back to music and working with musicians. That was certainly my
Yeah.
intention. I was wondering at that point, some of my ideas were, should I go more the physical route of like physiotherapy
Okay.
or even
Right, Alexander
doctor,
technique or something?
Alexander technique. And I definitely wanted an academic uh, background for this career change. I thought it took me so long to get here, 37. I actually gave myself 10 years to do that change,
Okay.
which it took.
Yeah.
And I finance it with like teaching piano, which I'm not a great
Okay.
I'm not a great piano teacher, and I apologize to my students.
I thought that. But anyway.
I'm really not. That's a very special skill set and a very special kind of human being, and they can do the greatest good and the most harm.
Very
musically.
true, yes.
So that's another topic, but I think there's this intention of trying to come back and help. If you've suffered in it, and it was a lot of, there's so many beautiful aspects of being a musician. I want to keep that in the forefront. But what I encountered in the later stages of my career, and also now, I encounter people suffering.
Yeah.
So from my viewpoint, it looks pretty toxic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff in it that you wouldn't if you were in a corporate career, if you were in a legal career, if you were in a doctor's career. There would be their own challenges, there would be their own difficulties, but some of the shit we have to put up.
It's
As
the
musicians.
most unique career as well.
Mm.
Like, I find it very good for me personally to be dating someone who's not involved in that. But it's also so interesting to see someone look at it with their eyes from outside, because the perception of what classical music is, you really can't understand unless you went through it all.
Yeah.
How deeply tied to identity it is, how fucked up it can be sometimes, and how we all just are complicit in this, because it's so common, not just in music college, but worldwide. The same problems pop up everywhere.
Absolutely. It's
Which
universal.
is mad to think.
It's a universal.
Like, you can be at a music college in Boston, or you
Yeah.
can be in one in Berlin, and you'll be going through the same shit that they
Yes.
went through.
Yeah.
And it's these little small institutions that are so bubbled off from the world. What issues are you seeing most now from your clients in classical music?
A mix between the damage done in their formative years tied with the intense precarity of living as a musician.
Okay.
So if it were one or the other, it would probably be possible
Yeah.
to kind of like work with it.
Yes.
But when you combine these two aspects of a kind of early vulnerability due to some messaging you got early, whether that's at age 5 or age 25, like
What are
it's
we
still
what are we
early.
talking about exactly here? Like,
Teachers, parents who equated a child's identity and being, children who either explicitly or implicitly got the idea, I am loved through what I do.
yeah.
And this is so easy. It sounds so like corny, but it's so easy to make the mistake if you start with 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, and then you do something and everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so easy for a child to understand, oh, okay, that's helpful. That's
Yeah.
really helpful. And then to go into that, to go towards that.
Yeah.
And the kid, it may be that the parent or the teacher like really driving them towards that. It may just be a child's innate wisdom of how they're figuring out their world.
Yeah.
So they get into it. They see this kind of like, oh, if I do this and I
Yeah.
do this, then I get a lot of feedback and that feels good. And so then you
But
start
also,
to get,
they probably clock on that they're making the adults around them happy too.
yes.
Which, if you're a very highly empathetic child, which I feel like a lot of musicians do have a level of empathy,
Yeah.
there's that side of it too. It's not just feeding your own ego. It's, oh, well, the adults around me who I care about are happy when I do this.
Yeah. Yes.
Which-
Yeah, it can save family systems. I'm a systemic therapist, and
Yeah.
that means that I come from family systems, which means that we don't look at individual pathologies
Okay.
first. We look at what's happening in the group
Yeah.
dynamic. So a lot of musicians are very well, a lot of classical musicians are very
Yeah.
well behaved. And it's
Okay.
not that that's their, it's my belief, it's not that they're born that way. It's just that they kind of came into a family system where maybe there was a problem child in the family, maybe there was a tragedy in the family, maybe
Yeah.
there was difficulties in the families, maybe their parents were really suffering. And the child understood, when I am on the stage, mama is smiling.
Yeah.
And this can be so powerful. And you can kind of get the sense of when I do that, that happens. And that can start to kind of build its own energy and start its own track. And one of the things that I noticed by in musicians is that they have a sense that they never chose it, especially classical musicians where there's this training
Okay.
that starts so early, anywhere from like 5 to 12,
Yeah.
depending on instrument, for like it could be 2 to 12 if like you're doing Suzuki. But there's this training that starts way, way before a child has any agency about who I am or what do I want to do.
Yeah.
That only starts like 7 to 12. This kind of agency of asking, who am I in the world? What do I want in the world? If you start these processes and you make light decisions at age 6 or 9 or 11, then later you ask, I didn't make that decision.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not mine. It was made for me. I never had that, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to enter this field.
I was curious if you were referring to that or this we'll call it maybe a calling that I feel like a lot of classical musicians would say they had towards their instrument or the career is they were always meant for it. But I always wonder sometimes, is that a mixture of genuine calling towards it, or I don't want to say forced into it or abused, but I mean something along that.
Yeah.
Like maybe brainwashed slightly into believing that this was the thing you were meant to do.
Yeah.
Because again, you're saying like 6 years old, you should have no fucking clue what you want to do with your life at 6 years old. Even at 16, it's very normal to say, I'm not sure if I want to do this or not.
Yeah.
But as you said, so many classical musicians, by the time you're like 7, it's laid out for you. That's going to be your career.
Yeah.
And that's difficult.
I find it so, I met this amazing kid who was like, I think he was 10 or 11 at this point, and a couple of years ago, and he was playing so beautifully, and his mother was and she was walking around and saying, it's his passion, it's his seine Leidenschaft. I was like, he's 10 years old.
He's 10. Man, his passion is probably also eating grass. He's 10 years old. If you give him time to eat grass, he'll have a great fucking time. He's 10. You have passion when you're 10, man.
Like, what does passion mean for a 10-year-old? Like, what are they talking about? Is it that he...
Well, what are they talking? What do you think they mean when they say that?
I think that he figured out, because he's a bright kid, that when he sits his bum on the piano seat and practices, he gets things in life. He gets recognition. He might get chocolate. He might get he might get some things that he really likes. Yeah. And then he gets all this feedback, and he understands that the better he gets at it, the more the feedback comes. And so he's getting this like feedback cycle going. And then he might even start to believe, I am so passionate about this. I remember, like in my own story, I have this wonderful, wonderful cousin who is a ballet dancer, and she used to struggle for being a ballet dancer. She had to like fight for it. Yeah. And so she started later than usual for a ballet dancer. And I remember her talking as a teenager. Like even when she would say the word ballet, you could hear it like ballet. She loved it. And I was always like, I don't even know what that is. I have no idea how to say I love piano. And because it was how do you know that you love something when you never had to choose it?
Exactly, yeah.
It's very abstract. So I was always looking at her, and like she expressed such love for her art, and I was a little jealous about that because I couldn't generate that. It's not that I hated it; it's just that I had no idea. It was just what I did. It's like I love sitting in this chair. It's just I love living in this house, It was very abstract. It's like you don't know any difference.
I mean, I've always had that jealousy as well with every other type of music, because I feel like they don't go through what we have to go through. So they're very clear about, and also I feel like the main goal of the music, or what's certainly highly valued in every other type of music, is the creation of the art and expressing yourself. Classical music is the one exception to that, where self-expression doesn't play a huge role. It's maybe 3rd or 4th on the list of priorities. Technique is obviously number 1, and fall into the industry in the correct way is number 2 probably. And I used to get so jealous of that. Like one thing I used to be so jealous, I think a lot of classical musicians, I've talked to them over the years that they relate to, is being at music college and going to like normal parties where there wasn't classical musicians, and some dickhead in the corner with the guitar playing like Wonderwall. I mean, I can't do that. Yeah. I am training to be a musician, and I haven't got that thing of going, I'm just going to play for my friends. Yeah. Because to me, the idea of sitting down in front of all my mates and playing, the anxiety of that, even though I've had a few pints, the anxiety of getting out my flute and playing, even they would even say, "Oh, play us a bit of classical music." And man,
you have to prepare yourself. You have to like build yourself up. It's very hard to just be spontaneous and show up. You have to like think. I remember like people asking, oh, somebody's going to ask me to play this. Okay, what will I play? And going through the piece in my head,
Yeah.
and making sure it's all there. And that kind of mental preparation, all that mental
Isn't it
load.
mad?
It's not just coming in and just sitting in the seat and playing. It's a lot of work.
But it
that
should
precedes
be.
it. It should be.
Like there should be that joy for it. Sorry, just to go back to when you're saying about parents as well and growing up with that. Where is the line for a parent with a child in classical music where they say, right, I'm going to praise them for doing well with classical music, but I don't want it to be formative towards them. I don't want it to be so important. What's a healthy attitude to have with classical music?
If a parent can avoid that mental calculation, children are this is their survival strategy to figure out the world. They have to. So if a child gets that idea, my worth is tied to this activity, and it may be not explicitly said by there are parents who say that, like Lang Lang's father said, jump off the balcony if you don't get into the Beijing Conservatory when he was like 8 years old or something. And there are parents who are like just purely abusive, but there's a lot of really well-meaning parents who don't want to foster that. But if your child could get the message that their worth is tied to what they're doing, let's avoid that.
Okay.
So if a child is truly enjoys moving their fingers over the keys and doing it, find a way to cultivate the circumstances where that's possible.
Yeah.
And yes, it feels good to be in like playing for people and people clapping.
Yeah.
Children love that. There's no reason to avoid that. But if there's a way to show them what you do, or show them who you are, that kind of mix up with identity and what you're doing.
Okay.
The parents can do a lot of good if they let the kids just develop. And the question is, does it work towards the highest level excellence to cultivate a normal childhood? And I'm still a little
What are your
stuck
thoughts
on
on that so far?
There are I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure there are many examples of it being possible, but there are also so many examples of people in so many fields, whether it's sports or whether it's music, who had parents pushing them. And that was the path towards that extraordinary effort that was needed for them to become excellent in their field. If there are examples of really highly autistic kids who just love playing.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that belongs to kind of a a normal brain. I'm not sure if that that kind of intrinsic motivation would belong to a normal brain. I'm using normal in quotation marks because I have certainly, and most psychologists do, we're all neurodiverse in some way.
Okay.
So I don't want to indicate that there's something pathological about people with neurodiversity, but if a child is finding that joy or solace or protection in music intrinsically, they probably have a neurodiversity, and that can be cultivated in the best possible way. If a kid is normal, they're probably going to want to hang out with their friends.
Yeah.
So that's a normal childhood thing to do. And if that child does have a kind of wish to hang out with their friends, and they have a parent who's pushing them, you have to sit at your piano for 2 hours before you go out and hang out with your friends. That is another path towards excellence, but it's not a very easy one. So I think kind of letting the reins up for that push towards excellence, if a parent is needing their child to be excellent so much, they probably have narcissistic impulses.
Okay.
And that's very, very worthwhile to look at, because it is a very heavy burden for a child to carry. So it's a
generally look at within your therapy then is the relationship with parents.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. To parents and teachers, early teachers,
instrumental teachers or classroom teachers as well?
Mostly they're one-to-one private
Okay.
teachers.
I mean, I do want to talk about that in general, and that relationship that we get in classical music, because again, it's so unique. It's something I've been bringing up a lot recently because, as you know, I was talking to Lara St. John about this. I've got more plans in that episode. I do think it's certainly time to look at a revision of that system at the minimum, perhaps even considering abolish it entirely. I don't know if the one-to-one system, certainly at the higher levels, really is fit for purpose anymore in the modern society. I feel like it's time we have to review that a little bit. Like even looking at the French system of classroom learning where you have your one-to-one lessons, but other people are present at it, is certainly more helpful. But it feels like at this point it's doing more harm than good for me. It's way too much power in one person's hands.
I want to address that because I taught for 2 years in the humanities department at Eastman School, and there was a lovely lady there who had nothing to do with music. Like, she comes totally with an outsider perspective, and she said something really challenging to me. She said, this medieval system of like teacher student, it is so medieval, and it's so harmful. And I was so shocked because I at that point I was thinking still very much, this is such a blessing. As a musician, you have access to this person, and where else do you have that?
Unfiltered 1 hour access.
1-to-1.
Yeah.
1 hour, 2 times a week. And where else do you have that? And I think there is beauty in it. I think there
certainly is,
amazing about it. But there's also so much potential for harm. And I think that perspective of how do you become an adult? That was her question. If your teacher is is like a parent, how do you learn to be an adult? Because she was talking about studying history in Berlin, like the time the Berlin Wall fell. She had like a lecture hall of 200 people and one professor, and then they had seminars. And she said, we had to learn what we thought about things. We had to figure it out ourselves. She said, in Eastman, there was a teacher who left for Juilliard, and all of the students were like crying the day that happened. They all left and went with her. And she said, what's wrong with them? Why are they so connected to that person? When are they going to learn to be adults?
I couldn't agree more now, to be honest. What did you think about that?
It was shocking for me at first because I'd never heard that perspective.
That is a very interesting perspective about,
But the more I think about it, the more I think there's truth in it.
Yeah. I'd never thought of looking at it from that side of things either. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I still think it's weird, the whole system of one-to-one teacher, and it sort of feeds into that thing of putting certain musicians or certain people on pedestals in classical music, which we love doing. But I feel like in this modern day, first of all, the potential for harm is so great, and we're seeing that now. I think the potential for harm has always been massively there, but just hasn't been reported as much as it is now, and thank God it is. But also, it's 2026. What information can you really get from this person that you can't get in the fucking internet?
Well, I'm going to push back there because I know this is one of the most beautiful aspects of like piano playing. This can also be so tremendously abused, is hand on hand, right? The amount of information I've heard in Russian schools, there's these like old lady teachers.
Oh, is that a right clear picture of my head right now?
A kid will be sitting there at 6, and they will be very tactile in general, like hands on. And of course, this is so dangerous, especially for my poor male colleagues. They can't do this. But it's such a form of learning. And I do think there's something very special about it. And I want to also, I'm not saying that you should do away with the one-to-one system in any way, because I think there's a lot of beauty in it. And I think that there's aspects of being in the same room, having that access, and having the ability that somebody says, it's not this, it's this. It's such a fine, and I don't know, like for listeners, I'm like touching the key in different ways. But yeah, it's so subtle that you can't do it with words. You can't do it with like an instruction. You have to either show it or feel it or like sense into it. And that's where the beauty of all of this is. It's so incredibly fine.
Well, it's also very human as well when you put it that way. I mean, there is definitely good things about it. I adored my one-to-one lessons. I really adored them. Some of my teachers, I was so glad I got them, and I was very happy that I didn't have to share them with anyone else because I love that one-to-one time. But there is a middle ground to be found, and there's quite easy solutions, in my opinion, to work this out. Like, certainly at conservatoire level, I see no point. I haven't heard a good argument yet about putting cameras in practice rooms or putting windows in them or allowing people to walk in and out. Like, that was very part of the French system, was if you want to go watch the clarinet class, the violin class, you could just walk in and say, hey, I'm registered here. Can I just watch what you're talking about? And it was that open door policy that really helped a lot because there's no need. I can't think of a good argument against it yet. The one-to-one system is beautiful in many ways, but it needs to be regulated.
Absolutely. I think that openness and transparency, and there's a lot of literature of what's the difference between a guru, a great teacher, and
interesting.
A guru is a very closed system. It's like, I have the potential to shape you and to form everything. I am everything you need. That's a guru. And there are a lot of teachers still nowadays who give that message. Like, I'm both your like teacher and your psychologist and your medical doctor and everything that you need.
I'm sure
your manager.
when you're working here now, I've seen that with certain teachers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and
How do you
that's
break someone out? Sorry to interrupt, but how do you break someone out of that system? Because obviously, if you're in that, like I know so many examples of people that moved to this city for teachers where they moved here 18 years old from potentially the other side of the planet, and they're away from their parents, they're in a brand new language, brand new culture, and they've got this teacher coming in saying, I am your everything.
yeah.
I will tell you what bank account to get. I will tell you where to register with your doctor. I will tell you what glasses to get. Not and then you go, well, obviously you're going to listen to everything they have to say.
It's tempting. It's easy. It's a
Do
clear
you
system.
think?
And I notice this with especially like musicians who are suffering with something. For me, certainly when I was suffering with my mysterious ailments, my mysterious hand stuff going on, if somebody comes in and says, "I can fix you," it's very tempting. You have to have a lot of maturity and a lot of like reflective space not to jump on board with that and throw houses.
That's at 18. Like I think not many people at 18 have that maturity and reflectiveness to go, well, no, maybe I should look at this. You obviously go, you're 18. You do what all 18-year-olds, you go, I'm an adult, I can fucking do this, or blah, blah, blah. Because that's what you do when you're 18. You make mistakes, but these can be so damaging.
Yes.
And it's not your fault. You're a kid.
Yes.
You're a child at 18. Like, I'm sorry, you see the people coming in at 8. Like, I see them getting off the U-Bahn around here at Aberpats to go to music college. You see them with their violins and man, you look like you're 12.
Kids.
And you're going into these like really adult atmospheres and environments, and
if
you're not an adult.
if you quantify what practicing is, if you say like if a kid practices an average is like it depends on instrument, of course, but an average of like 45 minutes to 3 hours a day throughout their childhood.
Yeah.
Like if you quantify how much time that takes away from their social development,
Exactly.
that's a lot less mature kid
Yeah.
than another 18-year-old. They haven't had that. There's a deficit. There's a social deficit.
So how do you calculate for that? How do you recover that deficit?
I think
If you're 25 years old, for example.
I think this is one of our issues in
Yeah.
music, that there's just a social deficit. I think people figure it out. They enter adulthood, they have to sink or swim, they figure things out in general. But I think that there's so much that happens in childhood. If you put okay, how am I going to say this? If you put something somewhere, you take away from something else.
Obviously, yes.
Right? So if you put so much time into practice, it gives you this great skill, but it's taken away from your social development. It's taken away from your ability to figure things out with other kids.
Yes.
And the more a kid practices, the more social deficit they have, unless they have extraordinary capabilities of sensing that out. And who has that? Like,
And then what do you, but, I mean, I'm very interested as myself because I've said for so many years, like one of the big things that turned me away from classical music for many years was the people in the industry. Because they were, for use of a better word, they were fucking weirdos, man. Honestly, you go to rehearsal sometimes, I'm like, did you honestly just say that to another human being? There's no part, like you're in your 40s and you haven't clocked, that's a weird thing to say to someone, or it's a weird way to act. And I'm like, but then you go, you haven't learned any social skills. You've spent your entire time with the violin. You haven't done anything else. You've done that since you were 18. Then you went to music college where everyone told you this behavior and this way of operating was normal because they're all weirdos in there. And then go play in a professional orchestra where they're all weirdos still. And you've all just sat and you patted each other on the back. I was going to use another phrase there, but patted each other on the back and went, oh, we're not weird. Look at us. And then you go walk into a pub and watch the reaction of the normal world. Go, what the fuck are you talking about? What is wrong with you? Like, why would you say it? I've heard people say such strange things in rehearsals. And you're like, what planet are you living on? Like, I'm always shocked. And one of the things I've always pushed for with like a lot of people who are like 18, 19, 20 would listen to this podcast who are at music college. And one thing I've always said that saved me at music college was, one, I chose not to live with musicians. So when I got my first like flat share in Cardiff, I went with people at Cardiff University. And I made a point of socializing with people who weren't in classical music. Because one, I couldn't be fucking asked with it. I couldn't be arse like playing Mozart all day and then going to the pub and saying, what do you think of the 40s? Said that, oh, fuck up. Chelsea are playing. Ask me about football. Ask me about something that my brain doesn't want to think about. But socializing outside that, I think, is very, very important. And finding that connection to the actual world, because at some point it can become too late, and you go, right, I have no way how to. Even it's something I use as an example so often, but dating. You watch classical musicians try to date, and there's a reason why so often they date within that world, because they go out into the real world and they sit and talk. Like the amount of times I've seen this happen, and they've told me about it, where they've went, I went on a date, I've sat down with someone, we're in a bar, it's lovely, I've ordered a drink, and one of the first questions is, so what do you do for a living? And then they say, I play the flute, and they go, oh, I didn't know you could make money off that. And their whole identity shattered, like, excuse me, I play the flute with the orchestra, I studied for 10 years ago. Great, you play the flute for a living. It's not the most sexy or impressive thing in the world. And their whole sense of identity is shattered in that moment, because like, usually when I say that, people are impressed, and now, oh, the normal world isn't impressed by it. But I wonder if you do have that social deficit, when you're 25, 30, which so many people do, how do you break out of it?
With a lot work. I mean, you can do it inside a therapy room, but you can also just have relationships, and that will happen within the relationships. You have to figure it out. You might have a lot of failed relationships, friendships or romantic relationships. Figuring out how to be a human being. It's, I think there's a combination here of the social deficit and compounded with like a neurodiversity very often.
Often, yeah.
And not always, but very often. And those two things can play off of each other. And what you're saying, like coming into a room and thinking that people will shine up because I said, I practiced today for 5 hours, and thinking that anybody will be impressed by that. And you're like patting yourself on the back. And everybody's just, are you crazy?
I mean, I probably should. It's my own reaction to this because I grew up around this and I'm just getting fed off of it. But I probably should have a lot more pity and empathy towards people with that scenario, because it is sad to see someone put that much of their identity and self-worth in their instrument and then have it crashing down on them after maybe 20 years of believing that. And suddenly in one moment you can go, fuck, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Who am I without this? And again, I want to come back to that question about identity because I feel like that's such a big thing, and that plays into it as well. Of if you get, which a lot of people listen to this podcast, and with the current state of funding for freelance artists and the state of orchestral music and stuff, a lot of people have dedicated their entire lives to it, and they've walked out at maybe 25, maybe later, maybe they've got to their 50s and they've went, okay, I'm going to stop doing this now. The biggest problem I see with them is, who are you without your instrument?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you deal with that? How do you come to terms that you are a fully functional person with so many facets to your personality, but you might not, you don't even have hobbies sometimes because your hobby is your passion, it is your job.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that identity crisis?
Yeah, it is a crisis, and there are crisis moments in every life. I would say it could come from a loss, it could come from a death of somebody that you love. There are crisis moments in every life, and you have to navigate it somehow. You have to grieve it. You have to come through it. You have to figure it out. You can have support from here and there, but humans have crises, and that kind of identity buildup, which is so fragile. Somebody can go go into it, and the whole house of cards can fall down. You can have one bicycle injury and injure your pinky, and your life is over.
Yeah.
And that happens to everybody.
Yeah.
It happens so much more than people know. They have this kind of built up structure, which is so unsustainable, and it will come crashing down, and people do deal with it in better or worse ways. But the thing that I would, this is one thing that I'm trying to get the message out in educational settings, is expansion of identity. Nobody is one thing. Yes, we can be passionate about one thing.
Yeah.
And it can feel really good to be passionate about that one thing. It can feel really great to put all that effort. But very often there's this calculation, the more, and this is pure capitalism, the more I spend on my music, the better my chances are of winning.
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing more than kind of capitalist and military paradigms going on there. It is not artistic, and it is not sustainable. It's not human.
Yeah.
So I would encourage teachers, if they're like feeding into that. I had one person tell me recently that her teacher, when she was 12, said, you may not do anything else, because if you want to be a musician, you have to dedicate yourself at this moment only to music. Give up every other hobby that you have. Only music from now on. That's such harmful messaging for 12-year-old. And it's just not realistic. When I think back to great musicians, they didn't have to deal with that shit. With the exception of somebody like Mozart, whose father was abusive.
Yeah.
He had to deal with that stuff. But somebody like Beethoven, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't sitting in a room by himself.
Yeah.
And I think Liszt wasn't. I think Liszt was, he felt himself to be very negligent in many areas of his development. So he tried to compensate. So he tried to read a lot in his, late teens and 20s and become much more worldly. But, you think of somebody like Schumann, who studied law before he became he wanted to be a pianist and then became a composer. There's no necessity to fully dedicate yourself to one thing.
Yeah.
Great musicians didn't do that.
Yeah.
And why did it work for them and it doesn't work nowadays for us? Why do we have to say, I'm going to, like a robot, I'm going to do nothing else with my life except go into my practice room from morning till night and play the piano? It's unmusical, it's unartistic, it's not human.
It's inhuman, yeah, it really is. I mean, that's one thing that One of the things I love about classical music and something I try to tell you, like, because I'd say I have a shitload of students at the minute, which I'm delighted about, and I adore all my students, but I would say very, very few of them are going to go towards a professional career in music, and great. I'm delighted they're not, because you've got other passions, you've got other things you want to do, great, but you want to have a positive relationship with music. But one of the things I'm trying to say to them is classical music fills, there's a hole in the modern society that classical music really can't fill, of that thing of going into your room for an hour without a phone and being self-effective in an art form.
That's so
It
true.
is so healing. It is so good for you
It
as a
is.
person to spend
Yeah.
1 hour, just you and your instrument and a bit of music, just getting to know it. You will never lose time doing that. That is always so worthwhile.
That is so good that you say that,
Yeah.
because that is so beautiful. And I don't want to indicate that this kind of like relatives are like how much that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful to have.
And I want my students to know that, because that's what I feel grateful for. Like, it's like meditation, man. You go for an hour and play Beethoven, you feel fucking great.
Yes.
You should feel great after it.
Yeah.
And I don't want my students to ever think, oh, I have to practice because this is how you make it better. I really, maybe that's the reason why I'm so passionate about my teaching now. I sort of fell into it because I had to make money. But now that I've went through everything and I've talked to so many people through this podcast, I'm so careful with how the language I use with my students. And the main thing I want them to come away with is I do not give the slightest shit if they come in and play wrong notes.
Yeah.
I really can't stress that enough. I'm like, listen, a lot of them are like 16 plus. I'm like, you're 16. You know what's wrong. If you want to make it better for you, great. If you don't, I don't give a fuck. You know, you're paying me and I'm getting paid. The most important thing for me is that you have a positive relationship with music.
Yeah.
Because in the future, if you're not going to be playing concerts, you're going to be buying tickets for it.
Yeah.
You're going to be supporting it. You're going to be feeding to the ecosystem we all need as artists. That's more important.
Absolutely.
And who gives a fuck if you're good at it or not? Why? Don't do it to be good at it. Don't do it for external validation. Do it for yourself, because it's so healthy. It's so lovely to have that good relationship with music. And also the amount of adult students I have who come in and say, I wish I learned an instrument when I was younger. And I go, well,
Yeah.
be careful what you wish for, like, you know, but a good relationship with music is so positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a perspective on that now, because I've always loved practicing almost.
Yeah.
I think there's something a little bit socially avoidant about that, because practicing as a contained space. And as a kid, it was easier to be practicing than it was to be among other kids.
Yeah.
And that was certainly in my teens and 20s the case. So I've always loved that contained space.
Yeah.
But and I love the music, right?
Yeah.
And now I had to give up practicing because of pain. Pain is the robber of joy in music.
Yeah.
If you're playing with pain, it really sucks to
Oh, it
practice.
just kills
So it joy went away from practicing for a long time. Now I'm a very much like on a hobby kind of level. No, I don't want to say hobby level, but I have certain pieces that I still play, and I can still play them. And I have 1 hour at most, like maybe 4 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, that I can go into my room and practice. And it's one of the most precious hours of my week.
Yeah.
And there is so much there, and that is so beautiful. And I think if one can connect with that, then there's something extraordinary. This is so amazing. This music is so amazing.
It is. It's incredible music, man. And like it sometimes get very excited by the idea as well of like, so I read a lot of music off my iPad these days. I mean, I have a fucking mountain of scores in a back room somewhere, but I can't be asked anymore, so I get it all on my iPad. But I spent one day downloading pretty much every bit of rap there is for the flute and just stuck it all on this app on an iPad. And there's something still so excited by me sitting down and going, right, I haven't got my phone on me, my iPad's on airplane mode, I'm going off. I have got the world of music at my fingers right here. I could play Beethoven, I could play Bach, I could play Haydn.
Yeah.
It's all sitting here. I'm sitting in a room and I've got an hour ready to just go and just get stuck into it.
And you can have a conversation with that person, with Schumann. I love Schumann. I love Charles Ives. You can have a conversation with these people in that room. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Put the fucking phone away. No, like
As tempted as it is,
throw
like,
it in
don't get
the
me wrong,
river.
yeah.
People are like cheating their phone into the room. Oh, I'm just going to use a Birmingham metronome.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to use
Oh,
it.
that's a classic
If
one,
you
yeah.
can do
Man,
that,
buy a
if you
real
can do that,
metronome,
great. Kudos to you. But the phone is designed to steal your attention. And so I say, throw it in the fucking river. You know, we need it for other things, but while you're practicing, you have that opportunity to get into conversation, and that is so amazing. Where else can you do that?
There's honestly
book,
nowhere in
maybe?
modern
Like,
life where we do
yeah,
that. There's
yeah.
nowhere. And the time you do for that, like, I mean, an hour away from my phone is like, it's
Yeah.
difficult for me in any other part of life. I can't remember the last, if I'm not playing the flute, where I spend an hour away from my phone. Like, even when I do a concert, it's such a weird thing, but when I do it constantly come out, obviously I leave my phone in my bag because I'm terrified of an alarm or some shit going off.
Yeah.
And I come back and I'm like, I've had like 200 notifications. I'm like, I forgot somebody. It's like, you haven't checked your phone in 2 hours. When was the last fucking time you did that? But music gives me that space, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like that little, knowing that I'm going to be there for an hour, just engaging with this. And also, you don't need it. Really.
You don't need it. Absolutely.
Nothing is going to happen in an hour that you need your phone.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
And we are so deprived of something that psychologists identify as essential for mental health, flow.
Yeah.
Identified for decades as a core component of mental health, getting into something, being sunk into something. And there's this like level of it being challenging enough so that you're interested in, but not overly challenging so that you're really struggling with it. But that beautiful golden mean of flow, and then you're into it, you almost lose your sense of time and space, and you're into something, and the time just runs by, and it's beautiful. And that is so important for mental health. And musicians have it in their, like, they have it because they have this tool that you can just go into your practice room and have that.
Can you describe what you think or what flow is for you? It's something I talk about a lot in this podcast. I am a huge fan. For me, it's that feeling. I said it's that lovely mixture between being hyper focused but not being aware that you're hyper focused. And it's that state where you get so stuck in. I think athletes refer to it as being in the zone.
In the zone,
But it's where you have like that time where you just go, fuck, it's been an hour now, there. And it's that lovely state where you're it really feels like flowing water just going through it. But what would you describe it as?
Well, I love how you said that kind of soft focus, because I think there's a hard focus, which is a kind of analytic approach, and that's very much cultivated in the pedagogical structure that we have. Like, I remember teachers talking about, you have to plan every chord like a millisecond before you play it. That's very hyper focused. And I'm sure there's benefits in it, but I don't think that's flow. I think flow is a soft focus. Flow is a soft kind of concentration. It's a lot of openness in hearing. It's a lot of like not doing necessarily, although you are doing, but a lot more receiving. A lot of like being there, almost like the piano is playing you or the flute is playing you. That there's this kind of synergy between you doing something, but that you also are being played by the flute. And this kind of, it sounds almost like very religious or spiritual, because like a unity, a sense of unity, that there's this connection between you and your instrument, you and the music, and you're in it. You're immersed by it.
And what are the like the psychological benefits of flow?
I imagine, I'm not really sure how to answer this, but I imagine it's a little akin to just rest in the brain. And when you sleep and you dream, that's a sleeping rest. And a kind of reverie, daydreaming is known to be a psychological health. It's like taking a pill or something. It's good for it's like a vitamin for you.
I heard someone once describe it as it felt like they were taking their brain out and giving it a wash and putting it back in. And I feel like that a little bit sometimes after like an hour of genuine flow state, which I don't always get. Like, I get it with the flute. I also get it when I write episodes in this podcast. Sometimes I get so stuck into writing it that I'll just be down that rabbit hole and enjoying it. I love that. But you come out of it and you feel great. You feel full of energy. You feel so clear with your thinking.
That is the defining factor. Like, how do you feel afterwards? Because if you feel drained and horrible and you hate yourself after, that's probably not flow. And it's not to say, oh, I'm the greatest thing in the world. It has nothing to do with a kind of self-delusion. But I feel good. I feel energized. I feel like my fire is there. You know, when we talk about burn out, something's burned out. What is that thing that burned out? When you're in flow, that's what it is. That thing that you have, you know, you can call it energy or force, or may the force.
True.
May the fourth be with you.
We talked about that earlier.
May the fourth be with you.
Right. I'm glad you got that into the podcast. I'm thinking of a way I can squeeze that in today. But
right. Okay.
It's not the episode to get that in.
We have to get that in. But whatever you call it, that you feel full of something good.
Tell me a little bit about burnout before if we end on something positive. Tell me a little bit about burnout, because it's a buzzword and it's thrown around these days quite a lot, and certainly in pretty much every other industry. I feel like in classical music we're still a little bit slow to identify when it happens. Tell me what it is and how you think, because there's a lot of people listening to this, I'm sure, who probably are going through it and not clocking that they're going through it.
Okay.
So how can you pick it up, especially as a musician, that you're experiencing burnout?
Right. So we have 3 symptoms of burnout. One is this chronic exhaustion, that even a time off, and musicians sometimes just don't take time off, which athletes are amazed by that. You have to take time off as an athlete. When athletes hear about musicians like playing through the year, not taking time out there, How is that possible? You have to have time to restore. So first message here, but if you do take some time off and you're still not restored, you still feel exhausted, that's symptom number one.
Okay.
Symptom number two is that things that used to be rather easy or possible are becoming increasingly hard. So there's a reduction of performance, and that may not only be in your music, it can be like writing an email.
Okay.
It took me like 3 minutes to rip off an email.
Yeah.
Now I'm struggling with it for 45 minutes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Number two. And number three, which I find the most interesting, is a cynicism. And this can really hit artists because very often artists come into the field with a lot of idealism.
Yeah.
And this can be so painful because it goes against their sense of self. They might see themselves as a person who's very open and in love with life and in love with their art form. And when they start to shut down and say, what's that I want? Like, this is all shit. I hate this. When they start to do that, it rubs up against their sense of self. And that can be a double burden.
Interesting.
And if one is sensing these three symptoms in any degree, it's a warning signal. The body is just taking over. The body's stepping in. The body's doing something very, very useful. It's shutting you down. It's like before the hurricane starts, people board up their windows. That's what the body's doing. And even the cynicism is just the body saying, okay, I'm going to take control of the wheel now. You've done a lot of work here. Great job. Okay, but it's my turn. It's survival time.
Yeah.
And so cynicism is a form of the body kind of taking over and saying, whatever is not absolutely necessary is going to be shut out. And so it's actually a beautiful process. It's almost like grief.
Yeah.
Grief is also a necessary human process. It hurts to go through it. It's painful to go through it.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely necessary if you've had a tremendous loss.
Yeah.
So if you're at the point where you've worked yourself into a corner, or I'll put it differently, if your industry has worked yourself into a corner, industry has worked you into a corner, then your body's just taking over and say, hey, I'll take it from here. We're going to rest. You have no choice in the matter.
Okay.
And it's hard when it gets to that point. It takes time, and the body will win out because that's what bodies are designed to do, and they will win out. Bodies are stronger than our, I'm going to practice. So this is like our thoughts and and bodies will take over and say, hey, good job. But now it's my turn.
Okay.
And when you feel that happens, give into it, rest. Just give into it. I know it's hard for musicians because rest is tied with lost income and you need that. And I know it's really hard, but this is a huge warning signal from your body that things are not okay.
Yeah.
And so if you, like, very often musicians are superheroes. They overcome so much difficulty. They overcome so much criticism, and they like do superhuman things on stage and superhuman efforts. But that can put you at the highest levels of achievement, and it can make you seriously predisposed for burnout.
Yeah.
And burnout happens to a lot of most
You see it quite a lot as well, Like, I mean, I see so many, like, in music college, it was par for the course, man. Everyone was going through burnout at some point. Like, it is a really hard thing to watch people go through. And as you said, the loss of income can sort of feel like it's feeding into itself a lot. But yeah, I suppose then the best advice is when burnout does come, to rest. And
rest is
a
whatever
hard
way
thing. You know, it's musicians. I think a lot of people don't really understand what rest genuinely means.
Rest is what feels like rest. That's my rule of it.
Interesting.
Rest. Sometimes for people who are high achieving, lying in a bed and doing nothing feels so awful that it's almost counterproductive. If it feels so awful, let's try something else. Let's take a walk.
Yeah.
Let's look at a great film. Let's not scroll on the handy and like get more depressed, but let's do something constructive, distraction. And so that could be a form of rest, but rest is what feels like rest. If you feel more rested, and even at burnout stage, maybe we're talking about like 1% more rested or 2% more rested, then you're doing good work.
Yeah.
All right. If you feel more drained after that activity, stop it.
Yeah.
If you feel more like...
So that's the basic rule then,
Yeah. Rest is what feels like rest.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Because for me personally, like, if I need to take rest, like I'm at that point now, like it's obviously getting to that point in the school year, and I've had a lot of concerts recently, and I do need a break. But the weekend after next, whenever this podcast comes out, I don't know, but there's going to be a weekend where I'm going back to Ireland for 3 days for a wedding. That's rest for me. Right. That's 3 days of pure socializing with no word about music, just talking shite with a bunch of Irish lads, having a couple of pints, and then going for lunches and going for dinners, and that's rest for me. It's going to be socially chaotic, but I feel great after it.
I can really
So-
relate to that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point of view of whatever feels like rest.
Yeah, I think people get in their mind it has to be yoga, it has to be meditation, it has to be lying in bed doing nothing.
Torture to
That,
the man.
that could be for some people torture. And if it's torture, it's torture. Maybe at some point in your life, like yoga will play a role, but maybe
That's also a point. It
maybe
does
not.
change.
No. So you are in, like, any given person is the expert of their own situation. People from outside might come and say, you need to have this and you need to do this. You need to do yoga. You need to meditate. You need to rest.
Yeah.
You try that out in your life and you say, that's not working for me, or that
Yeah.
is working for me. And that's where you have to kind of take the reins. And a lot of musicians didn't learn to take the reins early. They were
Yeah.
always led. Like I never forget, like one line from Igor Levitt's autobiography. He said he was never asked what he wanted to do. Never in his whole upbringing. Nobody asked, what do you want? What do you want to do? It was always do this, do that.
Yeah.
And that leads into health situations. And then musicians are coming to doctors and just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Or go to a psychologist and say, tell me what's wrong with me. Tell me what I need to
Yeah.
do. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
You have to work that out your own.
You have to figure that out yourself. I remember when I was in therapy myself and I was just asking, I was so frustrated with the therapist, just fucking give me a book
Yeah.
to figure this out.
Yeah.
She said, no, I will not do that.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
And I mean, there's very few skills as good as that in the world.
Yeah.
That's being able to work out how to solve problems. And I mean, that's one thing, as a slightly more positive note, one thing I've noticed with a lot of classical musicians, again, we talk about these things, like I have friends that I've talked to who have maybe left the industry. One friend in particular who's left the industry and then has sort of dipped her toes back into it recently, and it didn't go very well. And when she talks to her non-classical music friends, they just can't relate to the whole world, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But one thing I always say that you've built up that is a benefit, maybe one benefit of this whole system, is resilience.
Yes.
It's a skill that classical musicians seem to have in abundance because it's
Yes.
just part of your job.
And it's so good that you're talking about that because there are so many skills that
Yeah.
you get from this life.
Yes.
Right? Like that you can carry into anything.
Oh yeah, yeah,
People think, oh, I was so narrowly trained. I thought this. I was so narrowly trained. I'm not fit for anything else.
Yeah.
It's not true.
No, it's dog shit, man, that idea. Like one thing I've always said to all my students as well is like going out, like for example, I've got a student who's doing I think she's 16 or 17. She's heading to Milan for like 3 months through the school. Obviously she's fucking buzzing here. She's excited about it. She's French and she's going to learn the time. It's like, bring your flute. You do not have to practice one fucking note, but I guarantee you when you go over to Milan, you will find a wee orchestra to go into in your school. You will make friends. This is
Yes.
where all these years of practice,
Yeah.
it will do you a favor because you're
Yes.
good enough to go play in the
Yeah.
orchestra.
Yeah.
You're going to make friends. And look at me. The flute has got me to 4 different countries and 3 different languages
Yeah.
because I blew fucking earlier too. So the benefits of being a musician are not just playing. Actually, that's one of the least benefits.
Yes.
But
It's
being a musician.
one like symptom.
There's so
playing your
many
instrument is
things
one
you
symptom.
get.
And when I was in the U.S., we came back to the U.S. in 2015, and then who became president in 2016, and I was so frustrated by that, but I wanted to do something, and I joined a really wonderful environmental group, and that was led by a musician.
Okay.
And she did extraordinary work in this scientific environmental organization. And when I left Rochester 4 years later, we had this nice little going away party, and she told me, she said, I only want to work with musicians
Okay.
because they are so driven. They
Yeah.
are so disciplined with their time. They know how to figure it out.
Yeah.
And she said, if I could, for my environmental organization, only have musicians here, I'd be very happy. And that was really nice to hear.
Well, there
because-
you are. See, there's a job out there for everyone, and it opens so many doors. Exactly that. You never know where you're going to go in music. If you really enjoy it, it will take you on a wild ride. And there's so many things that opens up so many doors. So many cool people you get to meet as well, which is really what the best thing about life is, man. Is going to meet all these people and seeing things around the world. One last thing then I want to ask you before we go is, for a classical musician, what does a healthy relationship with music look like?
I think it's how it feels internally and how it's going externally. That's a very broad answer. So with anything psychological, there's 2 components, like what's happening on an external world that's making that person feel that way,
Yeah.
and what's happening within them that's responding to that.
Okay.
So with musicians, it's hard. There's a hard sector. It can be very competitive. There's limited resources, but there are a lot of people who make it work
Yeah.
in some capacity or another. And so if the external circumstances are in some way sustainable and not harmful, not chronically harmful, that's already a good thing.
Yeah.
And then if your internal processing of what you get in those situations feels not every day, not every minute, but feels basically like you have a life of meaning,
Yeah.
then you're in a good track.
There you are.
It doesn't mean that every single day that you're happy. It doesn't mean that every single day that you're free from suffering or free from struggling. But in a general, my life, I'm living a life that has meaning.
Yes.
I'm living my values.
Yeah.
This part of my job really sucks. I hate it. But in general, it's part of the price I pay to live a life of values.
Yeah.
If you can really stand by that, then you're on a really good track.
Great. That is beautifully put. I think that's exactly what I wanted to hear. We've talked a lot, and this is great. I first of all want to thank you for your time, and then secondly, I want to say, is there anywhere, if people want to read a bit more about what you're doing or to find anything about you, is there anything you want to tell the people about?
Yes, well, my book is coming out. I don't know when it's going to be published by Routledge Press. I don't know if you say Routledge or Routledge. I have to figure that out. But it's a British and American publisher, mostly academic, which is funny because it's not an academic book. But it will come out probably in the fall, and that's everything that I've ever thought in my life in book form. It's like
Okay.
I opened my mouth and words came out, and I put it in a book, and so it's pretty wild ride, that book, and maybe an editor will come in and help me clean it up.
Yeah.
But that will come out in the fall. It's called On Being a Musician.
Okay.
And at the point, I've done a lot of like blogs and stuff like that on my website. So
The people can find all out there then.
info. Look me up. A lot of this stuff is in kind of a rough form on my website.
Amazing.
It's my workshop to kind of get the ideas out there and start to work with them. And so eventually they'll make it into that book, and that book will be out in the world.
Amazing. Anything else?
Ask in whatever form you can people for help.
Yeah.
Musicians tend to be really
I agree with that so much.
self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So whatever that means, going to your doctor, going to a
Yeah.
psychotherapist, but also could be friends, could be open up. Musicians are so stoic.
They really are. Yeah, I know.
Oh, they think they're the only one who has performance anxiety, and every single person I meet is the only one
Every
who
fucking
has
person.
performance anxiety. I say, people, why don't you talk to each other?
I know. Yeah, I think that's a general thing with musicians is you'd be amazed how not special you are with these things.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Everyone has a certain degree of imposter syndrome, whether they're
Yes. 100%.
whether they're the top soloist or not. And everybody struggles with their own forms of anxiety or insecurities or fears or everything.
Yeah.
I can say that with confidence. There might be some weirdo out there who's perfectly content with how he's doing, and I would say that's almost pathological.
Yeah, that's another the whole problem in itself. Yeah.
Right.
Well, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Gareth.
I really enjoyed this, and I'll say goodbye to the listeners, and I'll probably catch them next week. So yeah, goodbye everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.